It's definitely a foreshadowing of what's to come. All fiat currencies will end up like that. It's just a matter of time. And the US dollar is the reserve currency. A lot of debt is still priced in dollars, so it definitely has more legs. But if you look at the purchasing power of a dollar over the last 100 years, it's effectively gone to zero. But it happens gradually enough that people just don't feel it. So it's okay, I guess. But that's the destiny. Just like the destiny of altcoins is to go to zero too. You know, they have one big run up and then they drop. And then they have a second run up and then they fade away into obscurity. Well, I don't think they'll be able to get all of the Bitcoin. There will still be Bitcoin in circulation. And I've theorized before that we might see a bifurcation of Bitcoin into institutional Bitcoin and free Bitcoin. So institutional Bitcoin is Bitcoin that's locked up in BlackRock's coffers, MicroStrategy, government holdings, but you'll still have, free Bitcoin that's circulating in economies around the world, being used to pay for things and being used as cash, as money. The question mark is, will this happen, or will there still be a bridge between these two buckets of Bitcoin? And we've seen, this can go either way, I would say. We've seen initiatives in the EU to limit transfer from one VASP to another VASP. So you could easily extend that rationale and say, ETFs can only send to other ETFs, even when you sell. And, that will cause two prices of Bitcoin, one price for institutional Bitcoin and another price for free Bitcoin. And I hope that doesn't happen. But, obviously the free Bitcoin will win at the end of the day because you can do anything you want with it. The other one is going to be heavily encumbered with different rules and different conditions on which it can be used and accessed. So we'll see what happens, but definitely I think you'll always have Bitcoin usable as money so long as anybody can mine Bitcoin and transact in Bitcoin.
You have some interesting ideas about where this could go with MicroStrategy in particular. And you recently tweeted that you thought it might end up being a nation state of its own one day.
Well, that's a little joke, I guess, but now it's looking more and more likely. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, eventually space travel could be largely done by private companies like SpaceX, and settling other planets or creating other settlements in the star system could be private endeavors. And if you have enough of that, then these companies effectively eventually evolve into nation states of their own because they get large enough and they have to implement some forms of governance and administration for their population. So I think it's very likely that very well capitalized corporations can eventually evolve into sort of nation states of the future. I think the nation states that adopt Bitcoin early on will continue to be nation states, and then the other ones are going to maybe cease existing because they don't have money, because money is what makes the world go around. Many people like to deny that fact, but it is all about the money. And the countries that can accrue wealth and keep it and attract new wealth are the ones that are going to succeed on longer time horizons. And you already see this in, say, Europe, right? Switzerland is very much a country that understands money and wants money to come in. The rest of Europe seems to not like money, and they want to control it and monitor it and regulate it. And that's not going so well for them at all. And not just money, but everything else. Their tech industry is gutted. But you can see this sort of trend happening where countries that are seeking growth are looking towards Bitcoin or deregulating money. So examples, again, El Salvador, but also more importantly, Argentina. So Milei has effectively deregulated money in possibly steps towards his goal to shut down the central bank. But you can use anything you want for trade settlement. You can use Bitcoin, you can use dollars, you can use cows or stable coins, whatever you choose. So he's opened that door now. And I think that combined with his other policies has largely lifted Argentina out of the death spiral that it was in. So countries like Canada are definitely not on that path yet. We're still focused on things like carbon tax, even though we're probably a carbon negative country. Not that I think carbon matters that much. It's methane that is doing anything, if anything. But, the Western countries by and large are focused on, I don't even know how to explain it. They're doing random things that have no effect on their economy or the world. It's just busy work. And other countries are trying to lift themselves out of poverty grow their economy and become magnets for innovation and migration and capital. So that's the battle for the next few decades, the countries that align with Bitcoin and the ones that reject Bitcoin. And I strongly believe the ones that reject Bitcoin are going to end up as failed states.
That's a lot of a broad scope of topics. But so you have the BRICS countries on one end, and you have Trump and sort of his own deregulation of money or regulation of money. And how would you care to characterize everything that's going on there?
Yeah, it's a mess. Let me think. Well, let's unpack this bit by bit. So I don't think tariffs are good, nor that they will work, because ultimately those costs are passed back down through the food chain. So you can impose tariffs, but that doesn't really change anything. And the US needs a lot of things, especially from China. So that's actually detrimental, I would say. I just don't think that's going to work. I don't think Department of Government Efficiency is going to work. Tariffs are not going to work. It's going to be the Bitcoin reserve, if they do that, that saves America, and embracing sound money. The BRICS stuff, I mean, the challenge there is that they want control over the money still. It's just, instead of control by one country, it's kind of controlled by, the BRICS leaders. But you can't have that, especially not in the age of Bitcoin or Annu Singulari or after Satoshi. It's not possible anymore because everything is going to be inferior to Bitcoin. So they'll try to launch it and they'll fail and they'll go to Bitcoin. So the really big question is really what is the interplay of US adoption of Bitcoin versus failure of a BRICS currency? Because I don't think that those BRICS countries will adopt Bitcoin as money. I don't think they see it. I don't think the leadership sees it. And they are still wound up on control. Like if you look at who the BRICS countries are, they obviously like control, right? So they're not going to just walk in, accept Bitcoin. So I see it kind of like, both sides don't really know what they're doing. But the US, if they do their strategic Bitcoin reserve, will probably come on top and win because they accidentally understood sound money. Quite a few politicians in the US that seem to get it. And get it at a very deep level. Cynthia Lummis definitely is one of those. Bobby is another one. But the challenge is, how does that entire piece of machinery move and react and adjust relative to everyone else? And I don't know. It's hard to say what's going to exactly happen. But I think if I had to flip a coin, I would say, the US is probably going to come out on top because they have Bitcoin. And if you look at it, the US has a massive concentration of Bitcoin overall. They've got the ETFs with, more than 1 million coins now. You have MicroStrategy with another large chunk of coins. So I think the future is relatively secured for America. There's just no other country that has even close to them the amount of Bitcoin a nation state should have.
The 6102 event that happened, I think in 1933, where they making personal holdings of gold illegal. What do you place the likelihood of acquiring a strategic Bitcoin reserve not by buying Bitcoin?
It's also likely, I would say. But this is why I think self-custody and having your own keys is so important. Maybe you want to buy MicroStrategy for trading and playing the markets like you would normal stocks. That's okay, but you should always have your own Bitcoin because that is your insurance against 6102. And I think you have to, as a Bitcoiner, expect that 6102 is going to happen somehow. There's always going to be a very important reason to seize coins or, effectively stop you from using them, right? And if you look at 6102, it was not technically, definitionally seizure. They just kind of said, well, if you do anything that, if you don't give it up, you're going to be in trouble with potential jail time and whatnot. And you see this kind of soft coercion recently with the COVID, right? Like, well, varying, there were definitely people arrested for not complying, but by and large, the control over the population was soft coercion, and peer pressure and Karens and, ratting on everyone else that's not doing what they're supposed to do. So you can see the same thing possibly happening with the institutional Bitcoin, the Bitcoin that's, in ETFs and in corporations. But I think there's always a defense to that, which is people have their own Bitcoin. And if they can move, then Bitcoin will survive because they'll move and they'll walk across the border and know 12 words and bring their life savings with them. This is why we're doing what we're doing at Gen 3, engaging with governments, because I think as part of Bitcoin adoption around the world, we need to start preparing or correcting legislation. And this is one thing I'll give Elon Musk a hat tip to, right? He's trying to put expiry dates on laws and simplify the entire legal system, codified laws out there. Because a lot of this stuff can be used against people, and there are not really laws that protect you, right? So let's say you just happen to be carrying your seed in your pocket and a police officer stops you and he looks at it, right? What's to stop him from either memorizing it or taking a photo of it, and your money is gone, right? So there's a ton of things that need to be put into place to protect people in this age of Bitcoin or after Satoshi. Because with the advent of Bitcoin, money is just information now. And yes, information is very porous. We can memorize it. We can send it in email or encrypted chat message or put it on a USB stick or broadcast it through radio waves. All these things are possible. But at the same time, we need better protections as individuals so that this information can't just be taken from you either by force or by accident. So there needs to be a higher degree of care when interacting with people now, because a lot of these actions that were deemed okay in the past are definitely irrevocably destructive now, such as like, you've heard stories like crossing a border, they want you to unlock your phone, right? What's to prevent a corrupt border officer from stealing your coins, right? Nothing. So there has to be a lot of changes, I would say, that are needed for society to function in this anno singularity era.
What is the Omega Candle idea, and why does it hold water?
Well, the Omega Candle is just a $100,000 candle in one day. We've kind of had traders posturizing the God Candle, which is a $10,000 candle, a green candle. Both are green. A $10,000 green candle on the daily or in one day. So the Omega Candle is just a larger movement in terms of Bitcoin price. And I think the reason why I was creating it was kind of also to prime people for the concept of $1 million Bitcoin. Just like with M notation, the world's going to change. After 100,000, I think everything starts to accelerate and go faster. So, post 100,000, we're not going to be watching $500 candles. Like 1,000 is already kind of normal in one day in terms of volatility. And I think the next step from that is 10,000 and 100,000. We almost had a God candle, I think a couple of weeks ago. I think we got up to 9,000 sort of on the day, but 100,000 is the next step once we start to go well into the higher ranges of Bitcoin. But it just goes to show like the fiat system does not really make sense anymore, because an Omega candle is nothing in terms of fiat money. Like the debt increases by a couple Omega candles every day, if not like many, many, many Omega candles each day. But no one blinks an eye for that, right? So again, like I told you, there's this disconnect between the fiat monetary system that's normalized, that it's growing very fast and at ridiculous rates, but that's normal. But when you talk about Bitcoin, people are like, oh, well, that's crazy. It's not at all. So yeah, the Omega candle is just a big movement in Bitcoin price. And the interesting thing is we already see Omega candles in countries with weaker fiat currencies. Egypt, Turkey, Argentina even. It's normal. Omega candles every day.
Any I guess final thoughts, Samson, for what maybe where you think this is going to be a year from now, or something that you're most interested or excited about in the space?
I don't know. A year from now, I would think we're above 1 million a Bitcoin, but everything is exciting. I think for us and myself personally at Gen 3, we're excited to onboard the next billion people to Bitcoin. I think a lot of Bitcoin companies and wallets have not really made much progress on advancing Bitcoin adoption in a meaningful way. Everyone's focused on making a cool wallet with very cool tech, but nobody's really focused on onboarding people that want to get into Bitcoin or don't know about Bitcoin. There's just no wallet for that yet. And that's really what we're trying to do. So, you could say it's our marketing slogan to onboard the next billion people, but that is actually the mission for Gen 3. And we have some really cool stuff coming out in the next year that's going to start making that a reality.